Alright, here we are on day 2 of our travels, and as you can see, things are going absolutely fantastic. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Peter.
I'm Aurora.
And we're traveling the country with our daughter and 2 chihuahuas in a motorhome.
Yes. Welcome back to our channel, and thank you for the likes, for the support. What is gonna be our topic today though?
Well, today we're going to talk about the few things that we've learned in our first month on the road and some things that we would probably do differently if we could start all over. We left our house in Temecula, California on March 31st of this year, 2021, and we set off on a trip that's going to last about 3 to 4 months. And we made a mistake of thinking that we could just pack the RV in one day, right before we leave, pack it up and start going. So we probably spent about a month ahead of time packing our house for the movers. So making sure everything's in boxes, everything is labeled, setting aside the things that we're going to put in the RV. But we didn't really think that it's going to take as long as it did to pack it or to plan it. So I'd probably say start thinking about it about a month, a month ahead of time. Start packing your non-perishables, your clothing, your canned goods, whatever it may be, some kitchen supplies, whatever you need in the RV that's not going to go bad by leaving it there for a month. And then maybe a day or two prior, start your fridge and make sure you put all of your food in there prior to leaving.
Yeah, I agree.
So that'd probably be tip number 1, is start packing really early with anything that's non-perishable.
But one thing that we also highly recommend, don't be like us, it is to read your manual.
There's a couple of bags of manuals that come with this RV. So basically, because you got a chassis, you've got your truck that's underneath it, and then you have the house that's built on top of it. So literally everything, every appliance, everything, every part of the RV has a manual. So these 2 big bags, and inside are all the manuals you got to read. So probably would take you about 2 weeks to read this if you actually read everything. But we do recommend at least going through and kind of understanding what's in there and some of the basic things that you use the most frequently, to know how to use them, to know how to maintain them, because it's going to prolong the life of your vehicle. So one of the things that we did not read in the manual is that our fridge can actually run off of propane. So if we knew that, that would have made things much easier, because anytime we tried to boondock, we kept our generator running all night, and one time we actually had the carbon monoxide detectors go off at like 10 p.m.
And we had to find an hotel that night. Actually, no, we went to...
Yeah, we went to another RV camp. But
it was very late, and
if we read our manuals, we would have known that we can run the fridge off of propane. We didn't have to run the generator, didn't have to deal with the noise all night, and that would have been much easier.
So, read your manual.
And it's probably a good idea to look up some videos on YouTube of full-time RVers, anybody who's been doing this for a while, because those guys typically tend to have really good tips, and any problems you run into on the road, chances are somebody's already experienced them, and somebody probably has suggestions on how to get around that or avoid having those problems.
Or you can also join some groups on Facebook, they're really useful.
Yeah, there's some really good groups. I mean, we sometimes will post a question and there's 30 people that answer the question, so that's been very helpful as well. Tip number 2, always make sure to get an RV inspector when you're buying an RV.
We had no idea.
We had no idea. So when you're buying an RV, you got to keep in mind there's the vehicle part of it, there's also the house part of it, and just like when buying any other house, you need to get an inspector who actually knows what they're doing to make sure everything is in order before you buy the RV. So we didn't know that, and as a result, on the second day of our trip, we actually got stranded on the side of the road with a brand new RV that had...
And we knew that that was going to happen, but we had no idea that was going to happen on day 2.
Yeah, we kind of had an idea that, at some point, if you spend enough time on the road, at some point that's going to happen. But day 2 of our trip was really unexpected. So we ended up staying in a hotel for 5 days.
Yes.
And just kind of had to pick up all our stuff.
And most importantly, we were trying to save the food in the fridge.
Yeah, because we thought we were going to be gone for 3-4 months, so we completely packed out our fridge. We had so much food in there, you couldn't fit a quarter in there anymore. Luckily, they let us plug in while the vehicle was in service, and after 5 days we were able to check out of our hotel and hit the road again. So tip number 3, look into whether your RV has a water filter built in or if you need to buy one separately. So any camp that you go to, if you have full hookups, you are typically going to have potable water there. You can drink it straight out of the faucet just like you could at any other city water, but a lot of camps we found that the water tastes really bad and you don't want to drink it that way. So having an RV water filter is really beneficial. If you don't have one built in, get one separately and you can just attach it to the hose and it works perfectly well. So we also have a separate Brita water filter that we keep in the fridge, so our water gets kind of filtered twice.
And tip number 4, always remember to check the wind speed before driving.
Sorry about that, Aurora wasn't feeling too well. It's been a long day. So these days we use an app called Windy, which Aurora found a couple of weeks ago.
And I'm obsessed now.
She's obsessed with the wind now. She's checking it like every hour. But it's a really cool app because it gives you the wind speeds that are forecasted by the hour, both the wind speed and the wind gusts. And typically if it goes over 20 miles per hour, we're not going to drive that day and we'll just stay an extra night at whatever camp we're currently staying. So it's been very useful. I think I don't think it's free. It's probably about 30 something bucks a year.
I think you can use part of the app for free. But if you want the hour-by-hour forecast and the most updated one, then you have to pay the annual one. But I think it's like a $30 a year or something close to that.
So the reason why we started thinking about the wind is because in the beginning we had no idea, and we were driving through Nevada and we were on this desert highway. It was kind of windy, you know, it was bouncing a little back and forth. It was perfectly fine. I mean, I could feel the steering wheel a little bit. But at one point there was a wind gust that must have been, I don't know, maybe 40 miles per hour or something, and it hit us pretty hard from the right and ended up swerving into the opposing lane of traffic, and that was a scary experience.
Yeah.
So from that day we were checking wind speeds pretty religiously before driving. Now there was one road that's actually even more scary than the Nevada incident, and that was the Hogsback Ridge in Utah. It's in southern Utah. State Highway 12, and that's one road you don't want to get stuck on when it's windy because it has a 1,000 foot drop on each side. It's only a 2-lane road and it has no guardrails at all.
Yes, in fact, the funny thing is that when we were going through this pass, I was just like this, so I have no clue how it looks like until I went to YouTube and I put the name of the pass and I saw the actual footage from the top, and yeah, I'm glad that I stayed with my eyes like this the whole time.
Everybody in the RV community tends to know about this pass because it's pretty scary, so you should definitely check it out on a calm day. Tip number 5, always research the city or town that you're going to be staying in, because it may not have some of the basic amenities that you're used to having. So before we went for our trip, we just always assumed that anywhere we were, we could just jump in a car and drive to a grocery store. And that is not always the case.
No.
So there were places in Utah that didn't even have a grocery store. And one time we were staying in Escalon, Utah that did have a grocery store, but they didn't have any fresh meat.
And very, very limited amount of fruit and veggies. And we were coming also from a 3 weeks trip, so we didn't thought about stopping to a big grocery store before going to that town because we had just assumed that there was a grocery store there.
It was funny, every morning we would walk in and find a couple of really shriveled peppers and we would just jump on them and grab them so we can cook dinner
that was our
night.
dinner,
So,
yeah.
yeah, definitely research that because the nearest town from where we were staying was a couple hours away and that was really not convenient to go grocery shopping.
But we're gonna mention the place because it was very good overall, and they had an amazing coffee there. So if you go there, just stop by for coffee.
Another thing to research is whether the city or town that you're going to be staying in has any cell service, because we have a Wi-Fi hotspot through AT&T, and the hotspot only works as well as the cell signal that you're able to get. So if there's no cell service, you're not going to have internet. You're not going to be able to research anything else. Tip number 6, how to book sites in areas that are super popular. So for example, we went to Moab, Utah the other week, and we could not find a park that had any availability. So everything was overbooked.
Well, I mean, most of the time we book our campsite, ahead of time. But sometime, if you decide to extend our trip, you kind of have to wait to see when you're gonna get there.
Yeah, you have to do it kind of last minute sometimes. And if you're in that situation, one thing that we've learned is when you are making a reservation, when you tell the park that you're towing a vehicle, they're going to try to find a spot for you that is the length of your RV plus the length of the vehicle. And that typically is harder to find because they're looking for a big rig site. If they don't have it, they just tell you there's no availability in that park. But after talking to them a little bit, I found out that they actually have spots that are big enough for our RV, but they just wouldn't fit the car all the way if it stayed parked at full length. So I just told them, hey, I'm not going to park the car right there. I'm just going to park in a parking spot that's across the way. And they were perfectly fine with that. They actually had availability. So when you're booking,
who knows how many times we thought it was fully booked, but they actually had a site for us.
Yeah. So in tip number 6, we would say do not tell the park that you're towing if you feel that the park might be full. First, find out if they have spots that are the length of your RV, and if they do, you could book that, and you could always park your car behind the clubhouse or in a parking lot. Tip number 7: if you're traveling with kids and you plan to do some hiking, we would highly recommend getting a hiking backpack for the kiddo, because we had a regular baby carrier and trying to lug around 20 pounds in that for a 3-hour hike was not fun. So we ended up getting a good one on Amazon that kind of keeps Eva high above, and she loves being there. She loves hiking with us that way. So highly recommend get a hiking backpack. You will not regret it.
And speaking of traveling with kids,
we have these two ladies who are always with us, and we have some tips for them as well. So for the dogs, I think the most important thing is, especially if you're traveling in the southern states during the summer, the most important thing is to get a temperature monitor that works through Wi-Fi, or to get a camera that's going to be recording a thermometer, just like we did. So ours was a little bit more low-tech because we found out very quickly that the temperature monitors that function through Wi-Fi are pretty expensive. So we just took a regular good old doggy cam that we bought for like $25 or something like that.
And we put in front of the camera.
And we put in front of the camera a thermometer that makes sure that the temperature is always good for them, because if for whatever reason your air conditioner stopped working while you were gone, the temp in there can get really high very quickly, and that could be dangerous for the pups.
Of course, assuming that your Wi-Fi is working.
And finally, tip number 8, if you're an OCD person and you're thinking about moving into an RV, don't.
I have to agree with that. Yeah, it's very challenging.
If you're an OCD person, you want everything always clean. You want everything always, in a particular place. You want everything organized in a certain way. It may drive you nuts. The RV life may make you or break you.
I still kind of halfway, so I'm kind of in between. But yes, I realized that you can vacuum 3 times a day, and dust still coming in. So
yeah, there's we'll keep windows open, we'll keep our front door open, which has a screen on it. But if it's windy outside, you are going to get more dust inside than you normally would.
Yeah.
And just because of the space being smaller than your typical house, there's going to be stuff around.
A lot of things around,
especially with the toddler.
Yeah, and the dogs.
Yeah, so that's tip number 8. If you're OCD, don't be. So that was a quick rundown of a few things that we've learned in our first month and a half on the road, but we are still very new to RVing. We're still learning. So if you have any favorite tips that you want to share, please drop them down in the comments below. They're going to be helpful to us and hopefully going to be helpful to anyone else reading the comments. Hope you guys like our video. Please subscribe and like, and we'll see you next time.